Welcome to your weekly Canadian astrology forecast for May 4th to the 10th, 2026. My name's Adeana. I'm an intuitive astrologer. In this week, we are moving through a very important energetic bridge for Canada. This is not a week of random events. This is a week where pressure reveals priorities. We are looking at leadership, money, public emotion, national security, housing, resources, and the deeper question of who holds power within the systems Canadians rely on. And when we compare this to Canada's natal chart using July 1st, 1867, 12 a.m. in Ottawa, Canada, with whole sign houses, we are working with an Aries rising chart. That means Aries is Canada's first house of national identity, leadership, image, and direction. Taurus is Canada's second house of money, resources, affordability, and economic security. Gemini is the third house of media, information, and communication. And Cancer is the fourth house of the people, housing, land, emotional security, and the foundation of the country. And Aquarius is the 11th house of the collective, institutions, networks, social movements, and long-term national systems. So this week, the major houses being activated are the 1st, the 2nd, the 4th, and the 11th houses. In plain language, this is leadership, money, the people, and power within the systems. And that already tells us the story. Canada is moving through a week where leadership choices have real emotional consequences. Economic conversations may intensify, public pressure may rise, and the country may be forced to look more honestly at where systems are working, where they are strained, and where power needs to be rebalanced. We are also looking at this against the backdrop of real Canadian issues already unfolding: inflation pressure, cost of living, housing supply, energy infrastructure, Indigenous housing investment, and the government's push to accelerate major projects. Recent reporting has pointed to Canadian inflation rising to 2.4% in March, partly connected to a jumpstart in gasoline prices, while Ottawa has also been announcing housing and infrastructure moves, including affordable housing projects and Indigenous housing funding. Canada has also approved a major Enbridge natural gas pipeline expansion and announced plans around commercial space launches, showing a broader national push towards economic independence and infrastructure development. So astrologically, this week is speaking directly to what is already happening on the ground. We begin the week with May 4th with Mars in Aries, squaring Jupiter in Cancer. This is a big, loud, reactive transit. Mars in Canada's first house and Jupiter in Canada's fourth house, so we have the planets of action, conflict, speed, and assertion moving through the house of leadership and national identity, squaring the planet of expansion, growth, belief, and exaggeration in the house of the people, housing, land, and emotional security. This is leadership pushing forward while the public feels everything very deeply. Jupiter in Cancer in the fourth house can expand care for the people. It can bring attention to housing, family security, land, food, shelter, and the emotional needs of the country. But because this is a square, the energy is tense. The highest expression is bold action that protects the people. But the lower expression is leadership moving too fast while the public feels emotionally overwhelmed and unheard. This can manifest as announcements that sound ambitious but also raise questions. It can show up as overpromising, especially around housing, affordability, energy, and security. It can bring political confidence, but also public pushback. It can create a feeling that the government wants to move quickly while Canadians are asking, but how does this actually affect our homes, our families, our bills, and our future? And this is very important because Jupiter in Cancer in the fourth house expands the emotional body of the nation. Canadians may not respond to things logically this week. They may respond from exhaustion, concern, fear, hope, or the need to feel protected. So if there are major announcements connected to housing, land, national development, infrastructure, immigration, food costs, or domestic security, the reaction may be bigger than expected. Now, the shadow side of this Mars square to Jupiter is exaggeration. It can inflate conflict. It can make leaders overstate what is possible. It can make the public react before all the facts are clear. It can also create a too much too fast feeling, where everyone is trying to force momentum without fully considering the emotional consequences. The navigation for Canadians here is to watch the difference between confidence and recklessness. Bold action is not the problem, but action without grounding can create instability. This is a week to ask, is this decision protective or is it performative? Is this leadership rooted in courage or is it rooted in pressure? For everyday Canadians, this transit can feel like emotional impatience. People may feel frustrated with the pace of change, especially around cost of living and housing. There may be anger around how long things have taken, but also anxiety about what rapid change could bring. The way through this is stay connected to facts, not just feelings. Mars in Aries wants action now. Jupiter in Cancer wants emotional reassurance. But the square says both needs to be integrated. Canada needs action, yes, but it also needs care. It needs momentum, but not at the expense of the people. Then we move to May 5th, and this is one of the most psychologically intense transits of the week. We have Mercury in Taurus squaring Pluto in Aquarius. Mercury is in Canada's second house of money, resources, affordability, currency, food, land value, and economic stability. Pluto is in Canada's 11th house of institutions, systems, collective networks, political movements, technology, and long-term national power. So this is communication around money colliding with deeper power structures. This is where financial messaging becomes intense. The highest expression of this Mercury square Pluto can reveal the truth. It can expose hidden information, it can force deeper analysis, and bring serious conversations about economic systems, institutional influence, and collective priorities. This can be excellent for investigative journalism, financial accountability, policy scrutiny, and conversations that require honesty. But the shadow side is control through information. This can manifest as power struggles around narratives. It can bring intense debates about affordability, taxation, public spending, energy, housing, or who benefits from major economic decisions. It can also show up as distrust, Canadians questioning what they are being told, who is shaping the message, and whether financial decisions are truly serving the collective. Because Mercury is in Taurus, the conversation is practical. This is not abstract. This is money, groceries, rent, mortgages, fuel, wages, natural resources, stability. And because Pluto is in Aquarius, the pressure comes from systems, the government, corporations, institutions, technology, social networks, and collective movements. This can be a day where information feels heavy. A report, announcement, interview, policy detail, or financial statement could land with more force than expected. People may read between the lines. Journalists may dig deeper. Opposing voices may challenge the narrative. Institutions may try to control messaging while the public demands transparency. This transit also connects strongly to the current Canadian backdrop because financial pressure is already part of the national conversation. Inflation, energy prices, housing affordability, and infrastructure spending are not separate from this astrology. Mercury in the second house says Canadians want practical answers. Pluto in the 11th house says the deeper issue is systemic power. So the teaching moment here is this. Mercury square Pluto asks Canada to look beneath the surface of the economic story, not just what is being announced, but who benefits, not just what is the number, but what is the deeper structure behind the number, not just what is the message, but who controls the message. The higher expression of this energy is truth-telling. The lower expression is manipulation, obsession, suspicion, or using information as a weapon. For my fellow Canadians, the navigation here is discernment. Do not believe every headline at face value, but also do not spiral into fear. Pluto can make the mind go into extremes. Mercury in Taurus wants certainty. But Pluto in Aquarius says the deeper systems are changing and certainty may not come instantly. This is a day to slow down and ask better questions. Follow the money. Look at the structure. Watch who is speaking, who is silent, and who gains influence through the narrative. Then we get to May 6th. Pluto stations retrograde in Aquarius. And this is a major collective turning point. Pluto is moving through Canada's 11th house, and this is not a short transit. This is a long-term transformation of Canada's systems, institutions, alliances, social movements, technology networks, and collective future. When Pluto stations retrograde, the energy intensifies. It slows down. It turns inward. And instead of only seeing external power shifts, the country begins to confront the internal mechanics of power. This is about the systems behind the systems. The 11th house is the collective body. It is parliament in a broad sense, institutions, public networks, national goals, political organizations, unions, communities, advocacy groups, digital platforms, and the future Canada says it is building. Pluto Retrograde here asks, are these systems empowering the collective or controlling it? The highest expression of this transit is Canada reevaluating institutional structures, modernizing outdated networks, and confronting corruption, inefficiency, and power imbalances. It can support a more honest conversation about technology, AI, surveillance, public data, infrastructure, and collective accountability. But the shadow side is institutional resistance. Power does not usually surrender itself easily. Pluto retrograde can reveal where systems are trying to preserve control behind the scenes. It can show where public trust has been damaged. It can bring up uncomfortable questions about influence, lobbying, regulation, digital power, and who gets access to decision-making. This connects strongly to the broader moment Canada is in. The country is trying to redefine its future through housing, energy, infrastructure, trade diversification, and even space launch capability. These are not small 11th house themes. These are collective future themes. They ask what kind of country Canada is becoming, which alliances matter, and how much independence Canada is trying to build within a changing global order. Pluto retrograde says, before Canada can build the future, it has to examine the power structures shaping that future. This is not a quick fix transit. This is not about one headline. This is the beginning of a deeper review period. Canadians may start to feel that certain institutions need to be questioned more seriously. There may be a growing awareness that the systems people depend on are being restructured, whether publicly or behind closed doors. The navigation is to pay attention to patterns, not just events. Pluto rarely reveals everything at once. It works through pressure, exposure, and transformation over time. For Canadians personally, this can bring a feeling of collective fatigue. People may feel distrustful of institutions or overwhelmed by the pace of systematic change. But the higher path is not apathy. The higher path is conscious participation. This is the time to ask, what kind of future are we consenting to? What systems deserve our trust? Which ones need reform? Where do communities need more power, more transparency, and more protection? Then we get to May 10th, and the week ends with a much more supportive transit. The Sun in Taurus forms a sextile to Jupiter in Cancer. This is stabilizing influence, and after the intensity of the week, this really matters. The Sun is in Canada's second house of money, resources, and national value. Jupiter is in Canada's fourth house of home, land, housing, and the people. A sextile is an opportunity. It does not force results, but it opens doors. So after a week of pressure around leadership, money, systems, and truth, this transit says there is a path forward if practical stability is connected to care for the people. This can bring constructive economic conversation. It can support housing initiatives, resource planning, affordability measures, and decisions that help Canadians feel more secure. The Sun in Taurus wants stability. Jupiter in Cancer wants protection. Together, they support policies and conversations that connect financial reality with emotional well-being. This is the kind of transit that can bring a more hopeful tone. It can highlight support for families, housing, food security, domestic investment, or community well-being. It can also bring attention to land and resources in a way that feels more constructive than combative. However, the shadow side here, with Taurus and Cancer, can both cling to comfort. So while this is supportive, there could be a temptation to soothe the public without fully addressing the deeper issues. It can create beautiful messaging around care and stability, but the question remains, is the support real or is it symbolic? The navigation here is to look for grounded solutions, not emotional promises, not inflated optimism, grounded solutions. This is a day where Canada benefits from practical care. Housing policy needs to connect with what families, renters, homeowners, Indigenous communities, seniors, workers, and young people are actually facing. Economic growth needs to mean something beyond numbers on paper. The Sun sextile Jupiter reminds us that stability is not just economic. Stability is emotional. It is domestic. It is whether people feel safe in their homes, secure in their communities, and confident that the country is moving in a direction that includes them. So when we bring this week together, the story is very clear. May 4th, with the Mars square Jupiter, this brings pressure between leadership and the people. It can create bold action, but also emotional reaction. May 5th, we have Mercury square Pluto. This brings intense conversations around money, systems, and who controls the narrative. May 6th, we have Pluto stationing retrograde, beginning a deeper review of institutional power and collective systems. And May 10th, the Sun sextile Jupiter offers a stabilizing path forward through practical care, grounded economics, and emotional security. This is a week where Canada is being asked to mature in how it uses power. Leadership cannot just move fast, it has to move wisely. Financial messaging cannot just sound stable, it has to be transparent. Systems cannot just claim to serve the collective, they have to prove it. And the public cannot just react emotionally. Canadians are being asked to stay awake, engaged, discerning, and grounded. So the highest expression of this week is courageous leadership, honest economic dialogue, institutional accountability, and practical support for the people. But the lower expression can be overpromising. Information control, public distrust, emotional escalation, and power struggles within systems. So the spiritual lesson of this week is not to panic, it is to pay attention. Because when Mars activates the first house, Canada's identity is being tested. When Mercury activates the second house, Canada's values and resources are being discussed. When Pluto activates the 11th house, Canada's systems are being transformed. And when Jupiter activates the 4th house, the emotional needs of the people cannot be ignored. This week is asking Canada to align action with care, money with truth, and power with responsibility. And for Canadians watching this, the best way to navigate this week is to slow down before reacting. Question what is being presented, but do not get lost in fear. Pay attention to financial announcements, housing conversations, institutional shifts, and leadership decisions. Notice where something feels exaggerated. Notice where something feels hidden. And notice where something feels genuinely supportive. Because this week is not just about what happens, it's about what the events reveal. This is a week to stay informed, but not consumed. Stay engaged, but not overwhelmed. Stay discerning, but not cynical. Canada is in a restructuring process, and this week shows us another layer of that transformation. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will connect with you in the next one.